This video is all about fastening off and sewing your ends in. I finished off my granny square with the usual 3 treble into the first chain space, 1 chain and a slip stitch to the 3rd chain. I've already cut the end off. A lot of people think that when you've done that you can just pull that out like that. No. Basically you can see that is not anchoring or holding anything properly, and that is just going to pull out. So what we need to do is take all of this out. Right, I'm going to finish the end off again, and so that's 1 chain and slip stitch to the 3rd chain over here. To fasten off, you need to then pull this end through the 1 loop that you have left on your hook. As you do that, that comes like that, you can then pull this end and you can see that that is pulled tight. That is not going to move. That is the proper way to fasten it off. The next job is to sew the ends in. Now, generally you'd do this at the back of the work, so I'm just going to turn it over. Get a suitable needle. I'm using a tapestry needle here. Thread your needle. There's various ways of doing that. As you can see, that's the way I prefer to do it. You need to make sure that you've cut enough yarn to be able to thread your needle and sew a bit of it in. What I do now is thread it down that stitch there, so as it comes out just about there. Make sure it's not pulled too tight so as it doesn't disrupt your stitch shapes. I then put that through there. It's important that these ends are sewn in firmly, because if you're washing it or playing with it or anything else like that, they can work out. So once that is sewn through, you then push it back through that way, and as you're pushing it back through, you're catching the end that you've just put in. So now that's not going to come out. But to make sure that this doesn't come out, I'm doing it on this side as well. So just push it through that way and back in that way, and there we have it. Once that is all done and that's nice and firm, you can just snip it off. So the other thing is we have the one in the middle. Now I've worked this in, but I'm still going to show you how to sew it in tidy. Again, thread your needle. Pop that in that way. You can go all the way around if you want to. I haven't left enough yarn for that, but I have already worked it in. And then pull it back through that way. So that it gives you a nice zigzag underneath the stitches where you can't see it. And again, just snip it off. And that gives you a nice tidy granny square with all your ends sewn in.